Episode 1. You are not just healed. You are now holding the flame. You used to think healing was the end. That once the bleeding stopped, once the tears dried, once you could walk into a room without flinching, you'd be done. But healing wasn't the finish line. It was the threshold. Because now, you are holding something holy. Not just a memory, not just a story, but a flame. A flame that burned through generations of silence. A flame that outlived the shame they wrapped around your name. A flame that you didn't just survive, you inherited. And now, you are the one who guards it. This fire didn't come easy. It cost you years. Cost you versions of yourself you'll never get back. Cost you relationships that couldn't grow where you were headed. But what it gave you was clarity. And that clarity has become your responsibility. Because when you carry the flame, you become the lighthouse, the signal fire, the reminder to others that healing is not a myth. You don't just keep it for yourself. You live it. You speak in ways that warm. You walk in ways that illuminate. You draw boundaries not to divide, but to protect the sacred fire burning within. And here's the truth most don't talk about. Healing brings peace, but holding the flame requires strength, because people will come drawn to your warmth, wanting your light, but not always respecting your fire. They'll reach for your glow without knowing how much it cost. They'll ask for access without understanding that some flames must be approached with reverence. But you are no longer flammable. You become fireproof. Not hard, not cold, just clear. You know who you are now. You know what you carry. And you know you're no longer here to prove your worth. You are here to protect it. Because this isn't just a flame. It's the light of every version of you who didn't make it. It's the warmth of every prayer your ancestors whispered but never saw answered. It's a fire becoming, burning steady in your chest. And now, you walk like a temple. You speak like a bell tower. You sit at the center of your own life and tend the flame like a priest of your own resurrection. You are not just healed. You are healing embodied. You're not just alive. You are the keeper of everything that tried to kill you and failed. So hold the flame, and when the wind comes, don't fear it. Breathe with it. You were made for this fire. And now, the fire moves with you. Episode 2. They'll try to touch your flame without understanding its cost. People are drawn to warmth, to light, to truth that feels alive. And when you've spent your life healing in silence, you forget how powerful your presence has become. Until they start to show up, they come for your calm, your clarity, your insight, your softness, your ability to hold space like you were born to do it. But here's what they don't always see. What they can't feel just by standing in the glow. The nights you had no one to hold you. The betrayals that taught you the language of boundaries. The storms that made you shelter for others. Because no one built a shelter for you. They see the light, but they don't always respect the burn that created it. And some will try to touch it, like it's theirs to take. They will reach for your energy, as if it were endless. They will come to your fire, to warm their hands, without ever asking if you're okay. And if you're not careful, you'll start giving again from the same place. You once bled. You'll confuse being needed with being seen. But not everyone who comes close is meant to stay. Not everyone who loves your light knows how to love you. Some people love the way you make them feel, not the way you make them grow. And this is a lesson of the flame. It must be guarded, not hidden, not hoarded, but held with holy discernment. Because your light is sacred. Your peace is hard-earned. Your energy is not an offering for those who only come to taste, but never to nourish. You are no longer the version of yourself who thought love meant always being open. You know better now. You know that access must match intention. That presence must match depth. That kindness does not require self-erasure. You're allowed to say no, to close the circle, to protect the flame, even if others call it selfish. You are not here to burn out, just to prove that you are warm. You are here to burn on purpose. Steady, true, alive. And the ones who honor that fire, they'll come with matches of their own. They won't take. They'll bring kindling. They'll feed the flame. not drain it. You'll know them by the way they respect your silence, by the way they don't flinch at your depth, by the way they ask before they reach. So let them try to touch your flame, and if they can't hold it gently, let them go, because your fire is not for consumption, it's for communion. And only the ones who understand its cost are worthy of standing in its glow. Episode 3. You are no longer the fire they forgot. You are the flame they cannot ignore. There was a time when they walked right past you. You were burning, but quietly. You were glowing, but only enough to survive. You were trying to hold the light in your chest without letting anyone see it flicker. Because back then, being seen felt dangerous. Being noticed meant being questioned. Being radiant meant being called too much. So you made yourself dim, small, soft-spoken. You became an ember in rooms that couldn't hold your blaze. And they forgot how deep your love could burn, how fierce your softness truly was, how sacred your silence had always been. But not anymore, because something shifted. You stopped begging to be seen and started choosing to be revealed. You stopped waiting for permission and started walking with purpose. You stopped whispering your truth and started living it. And now your flame cannot be ignored. They feel it before you speak. They adjust themselves when you enter. They ask different questions because now your answers are lined with power. They don't know how to hold. You become something undeniable, not arrogant, not loud, just clear. Clear in who you are, clear in what you carry, clear in what you no longer have to explain. And it unsettles them, not because you're wrong, but because they can't shrink you anymore. They don't get to define you now. They don't get to contain you. They don't get to call your fire reckless, just because they're used to cold rooms. You are no longer the forgotten warmth in someone else's winter. You are the flame they have to reckon with, the one they didn't believe would last, the one they didn't think would rise, the one they used to ignore and now can't stop watching. So let them stare. Let them wrestle with a version of you they never made space for. Let them feel the burn of their own resistance as your light keeps stretching wider, brighter, unapologetically alive. You are not the fire they left behind. You are the prophecy fulfilled, the torch still burning, the living altar of every no that became a yes. And you don't need revenge. You don't need recognition. Your existence is the fire, and it speaks louder than anything they ever said to silence you. Episode 4. This flame was never meant to stay hidden. It was meant to light the way. You kept the flame quiet for so long, tucked behind your ribs, protected under silence, cradled like something fragile, because for years, you were still learning how to carry it, still wondering if it would burn you before it could ever warm you. So you tended to it privately, carefully, patiently, and in a world that praises the visible, you became your own unseen miracle. But now something inside you knows. This flame was never meant to stay hidden. It was meant to lead, to blaze a trail through the fog of generations, to show others what it looks like when someone rises without bitterness, to be the lamp in the window for those still finding the courage to leave the house built by silence. You are not carrying this fire just to feel warm. You're carrying it to ignite something ancient, something waiting, something buried in the bones of people who have forgotten how to hope. And yes, some will be afraid of your light, not because it hurts, but because it reveals. Your fire shows them the places in themselves they've kept dark, the dreams they abandoned, the truths they buried under performance. But that's what real light does. It doesn't just comfort, it confronts. And your presence now carries both. You are not just warmth, you are awakening. You are not just healing, you are invitation. You don't walk into rooms to be accepted anymore. You walk in to shift them, to make space for voices that were never heard, to light the way forward, when all anyone else can see is what's behind them. And the beauty of your flame now is this: it no longer flickers with fear. It dances with intention. You don't beg for belonging anymore. You build it. You bless it. You burn through the old stories. and leave sparks of new beginnings everywhere you go. So let your fire be seen. Let it spill through your words, your eyes, your presence. Not everyone will understand it. Not everyone will follow. But someone will find their way because you refuse to hide. And when they do, they'll look at you not as a hero, but as a lighthouse. And they'll say, because you showed the way, I didn't turn back. Episode 5. You no longer walk into rooms. You redefine them. You used to enter quietly, carefully, like a question, like a maybe. You would scan the space, measure its temperature, shrink your energy to fit what felt safe. You were not timid. You were trained, conditioned to believe that being too much was worse than not being seen at all. So you played small, dimmed your flame, waited to be invited to speak in rooms where you should have already been leading. But not anymore. Now when you walk in, something shifts. The air adjusts. The temperature bends. The atmosphere rearranges itself around the weight of who you become. Because you no longer walk in asking for space. You are the space. You no longer bend your light to meet the room. You raise the room to meet your light. And they feel it, even if they don't have language for it. Even if they don't say it out loud. They feel the difference between presence and performance. They feel the difference between someone existing and someone embodying. You become embodiment of boundaries, of clarity, of truth without violence, of softness without surrender. And it disorients some people because they were used to rooms where power meant volume, where confidence looked like control, where leadership was earned through pleasing, not presence. But your presence isn't performance. It's a recalibration. You don't take up space to dominate. You take up space to free it. You don't speak to be heard. You speak to remember yourself out loud. And those who used to lead by fear, they start to lose their grip, not because you challenged them, but because you didn't need them to validate your fire. You've already validated it. With every scar turned into wisdom, with every tear turned into vision, with every no turned into a threshold of truth. Now, when you walk into a room, you don't adjust. You align. You bring the vibration higher. You bring the unspoken into form. You bring the invisible into voice. And that is power, not the kind that shouts. The kind that settles into the floorboards. That lingers after you've left. That leaves a trail of quiet awakenings behind every door you pass through. You are no longer a visitor in your own becoming. You are the blueprint now, the center, the frequency. So keep walking, not to prove, not to perform, but to redefine, because you no longer ask what the room allows. You carry what heaven assigned, and that, beloved, makes every room you walk into a room worth remembering. Episode 6. This isn't confidence. This is spiritual authority. They'll try to call it confidence. Try to name what they sense in you with language that's too small, too shallow, too polite. They'll say, you've really grown into yourself. You walk different now. There's something about your presence. But what they're trying to describe, what they're trying to wrap human language around, is not confidence. It's spiritual authority. Because confidence is volume. Authority is vibration. Confidence can come from success. Authority comes from survival. From scars you no longer apologize for. From stories you carry like scripture written on your skin. This is not a performance. It's a presence. You've been through the fire and didn't come out to tell everyone how hot it was. You came out carrying flame. You've wept into the floorboards. You've held silence like a mother. You've buried versions of yourself that no one even knew were dying. And now when you speak, the room listens, not because you're louder, but because your words are laced with revelation. You are no longer explaining yourself. You are embodying truth. You are no longer asking to lead. You are being followed quietly, slowly, by those who recognize the path you forged with your pain. You don't demand attention. You command alignment. And it's not because you're perfect. It's because you are rooted, planted in something deeper than applause, deeper than understanding, deeper than image. You walk with God now, not behind, not ahead, with, and that intimacy, that quiet knowing, makes you unshakable. They feel it when you enter, not as ego, as evidence of what's possible. When someone stops trying to be impressive and starts being true, this is why you don't chase anymore. Why you don't flinch when you're misunderstood. Why you don't break yourself into pieces just to be digestible. You are not carrying confidence. You are carrying permission for others to return to themselves, to remember, to root, to rise. Because spiritual authority doesn't dominate. It invites. It doesn't boast. It blesses. And you, beloved, are now the blessing someone else has been praying to become. Episode 7. You are no longer living in reaction. You're living in revelation. For most of your life, you lived in reaction to what they said, to what they didn't, to who left, to who stayed, to what burned you, and what almost buried you. Your identity was shaped by survival. Your choices were responses to pain. Your voice, always just loud enough to prove you weren't invisible. But you were never meant to live your life as a rebuttal. You were meant to live as a revelation. And now, you are. Something has shifted, not on the outside, but in the sacred chamber no one sees, where you stopped asking, how do I protect myself? And started asking, what am I here to build? You no longer spend your days proving you're not who they said you were. You spend them becoming who God whispered you always were. You no longer speak just to defend your softness. You speak because your softness has become strategy. Your truth has become direction. Your presence has become instruction. You are not reacting to the old story anymore. You are writing the next one. This is what revelation does. It doesn't just show you who they are. It shows you who you were before the wound tried to rename you. It returns you to your original blueprint, to the part of you that was never confused, never lost, never in need of external validation. And now that you're living from that place, from that clarity, everything has changed. You don't beg life to give you something worth living for. You bring it. You build it. You don't ask rooms to accommodate you. You create space where others can breathe again. You don't wait for signs. You are the sign. You don't repeat patterns. You repattern the atmosphere with your embodiment. And here's the wild thing, beloved, nothing outside of you has changed. The same world exists, the same names, the same echoes. But you no longer live by reaction. You live by revelation. So you move slower now, but with more force. You speak less often, but when you do, the room stills. You're not trying to be profound. You're just not pretending anymore. And that's what makes you prophetic. Your healing is no longer for recovery. It's for instruction. You are no longer escaping the past. You're unveiling the future. And every step you take now, every boundary you honor, every truth you carry without apology is a sermon. So walk like a message, breathe like a scroll, stand like a threshold, live like someone who doesn't wait for life to happen, but reveals what's possible when it does. Episode 8. You are the living proof that the room no longer defines you. There was a time when every room you walked into whispered your past back to you. The looks, the weight, the energy that told you, without a word, remember who you used to be here. And for a while, you did. You stepped inside like a memory, like a question, like someone still waiting to be forgiven for the way you had to save yourself. You wondered if healing was real, if every time you returned, you felt like shrinking again. But now you know better. Now you know you do not belong to the room. You never did. You were just the only one, brave enough to leave it and become something else. And now you return not as a visitor, not as a prisoner, but as proof that it's possible to outgrow the shadows that shaped you, proof that survival was never the whole story, proof that something holy can rise from the silence no one ever dared to break. You are not here to react to the room anymore. You are here to redefine it. You are not here to reopen old wounds. You are here to show what healing looks like. when it stands tall and doesn't apologize for existing. They may still call you the same name. They may still look at you through old lenses. But you walk differently now. You carry yourself with the knowing that the person who once sat trembling in the corner has become the fire at the center of the space. You don't explain it. You don't defend it. You embody it. And that embodiment, that quiet, radiant wholeness, is louder than any apology you were ever owed. Because the room no longer defines you. You define it with every word you speak that used to be a whisper, with every boundary you hold that used to bend, with every breath you take, without asking permission first. You are the living proof. That history doesn't own you. That trauma doesn't get the final word. That survival was only the beginning of what you came here to carry. And now you don't carry fear. You carry fire. You carry freedom. You are not what happened in that room. You are what rose from it. So leave the door open, not to return, but to remind the others. You can get out too. And when they ask how, you won't need a speech. They'll see it in your eyes, in your stillness, in your refusal to shrink. Even for a moment, they'll know the room lost its power the moment you remembered your own. And now, beloved, you are the room. You are the light. You are the proof.